welcome to my channel. Welcome to the website. My name is Daryl, and this is Programming in Any Language. The website is www.black-duck.com. It's where you'll find all my videos organized in logical order, and this is the Speed Track. The Speed Track is a series of short videos designed to get you to create a meaningful application very quickly. Okay, let's save our stuff now. What good is a computer if everything gets lost when you shut it down? Well, that actually does happen when you shut it down. What makes the computer useful is the ability to bring back data from some storage device, like a disk file, and fast. Well, in order to bring something back from a storage device, it has to be saved there first. That's what this video is all about. Now, if you look at the flowchart behind me, what you are seeing is the process of how you work with files. It's necessary to open the files first. When you're all done, you close the file. So you've got that open and you got that close piece. Everything is neat and tidy in the middle. Between the open and the close, we do our processing. Those could be loops that could take a ton of time, take a little bit of time, whatever. But it goes in between the open and between the close. We might be saving data, we might be loading data. It really doesn't matter what we're doing in between there. It doesn't matter from this perspective. The concept is similar in both cases. Now, there are a few advanced pieces to saving and loading. In this video, I'll point these things out. Take them on faith for now. If you delve further into my videos and my website, you will learn all about these advanced pieces. For now, however, let's get our Anything database working. Let's code the Save button. We're going to work on the Save button. It's always helpful to be able to enter stuff, be able to leave the room, be able to go home, whatever, come back the next day, and be able to load things back in so you left off where you're going to start up where you left off. So Save button's the first thing we got to do. So we're going to look at that thing right here. And that's going to require a couple of little things we're going to learn about today. So we're going to click on Save, and that's going to create our event. Now, in order to do any kind of saving whatsoever, you need to go up to the very, very top of your program, up into the using systems right here. We're going to end up putting in using system IO. What this does, I'll put a comment here. Library for working with files. If they included everything in Visual Studio into your program, your programs would be humongous. So what they do is they tend to put in the library system from the .NET platform that you're likely going to use. You'll find that Java does this kind of thing, Python does this kind of thing as well. You bring in what you need. We're going to be using System IO. We weren't using it up to now. And so by putting this in there, it gives us the ability to actually work with files, read them, write them, do other things with them. So we're going to go back down again. I can easily go back down just by clicking on the Save button again and pop into this thing. Now we have that System IO in place there. We want to do a couple of things. We want to be able to open a file, work with it, and then close it. That's really the intent of what working with files are. But we're going to be working with basically text files. And these text files are going to get saved in the bin debug folder. So I'll show you that as well. So what I'm going to do is, the first thing I'm going to do here is I want to be able to write the contents of the list box to a file. That's what I want to do. So what am I going to have to do that? Well, I'm going to need a variable to hang on to. I want to be able to count what I'm doing. So I'm going to have an integer sitting out here, and that's going to be int write counter. So every time I write a record, I'll be able to keep track of what I actually wrote. We'll call this thing count files being, or actually records being written. Records being written. The next thing I want to do is I want to create a string. Boy, I can't spell today. String, R-I-N-G. We're going to call it str for string, list box record. So this is going to hold a whatever happens to be in the list box in one of those particular records, and it's going to save it in this variable that I can use. So we're going to actually, what do I need to semicolon the back of this thing? Always got to close off your statements with a semicolon when we work with C#. So it's going to hold its current data from list box. I get myself a little space. And I'm going to actually bring in the stream writer. I want STREAM writer. This is where I'm using a system IO. I want to bring that in. And I'm going to create an output file. So output file. And this establishes a file to output data. Then I'm going to make use of that output file. I named it output file, so we're going to call it output file is equal to file create text, and you give it any kind of name you want. I'm going to call it my listbox file .text. It's going to be a text file. Put a semicolon at the end of this thing, and a little comment saying designate a file name and open it. So what I'm doing there is I'm designating my listbox file as the file that's going to appear on my disk file, on my disk drive. Listbox file.text. I can even open it with Notepad when I get it done, so I can actually see that. The create text is going to create that file right here, and it's going to be assigned to output files. The stream writer is going to be using that output file right here. We haven't used these two variables yet, but we will shortly, and then you'll see this little squiggly green stuff go away. So I've got the output file set now. Now what I want to do is I'm going to go down a little bit further. I'm going to say what I want to do now is I want to write the records using a loop. I haven't used a loop yet. Looping is going to allow you to go around and around and do things over and over again for a specified number of times. If you start using the regular learning videos that I have in here, you will go in depth in the loop and find out what's going on. But I did want to place it in here so we can make use of it now and let you see what it does. It'll give you the knowledge of what you can do with the program and allow you to maybe with your curiosity go a little further to find out, well, what else can I do with it? So we're going to do that. We're going to say it's going to be a for loop. For, and I'm going to say int write counter is equal to 0. So starting at 0, then int write counter is less than int record count. As long as it's less than the record count inside my entire database, I want to keep going. And then I'm going to say int write counter equals int write counter plus 1. Now there's a number of ways to do this, and then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to hit a brace on here and put it in there. So I've created a loop, and inside here the code is going to be going over and over again. Now how does it actually work? Let's get rid of the toolbox for a second here so we got more room to see this code. If we're looking at this, the for loop has 3 conditions. It has the initial starting point. We're going to start at 0. So that's what this particular thing does. Notice the semicolon ending that. Then it's got a check here. As long as it's less than the record count. And the record count is that thing, our total number of records in our list box. We're always going to have that integer there. It's going to have our maximum number there. So we want to be able to go 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way up until we get to the maximum number of records in our list box. How do we do that? This increments. We start with 0. That's where we started here. And this is going to increment the write counter by 1. So it's going to do inside, everything inside the loop, then it's going to come back here and increment by 1. And it's going to do it again, increment by 2, 3, 4, over and over again. So this is going to happen over and over again until the write counter reaches the record count. When it reaches that, we're done and we bounce out of this loop. That's how a loop is actually going to work. So how do we do this then for our loop? Well, we can write some code to do this. We're going to actually say, okay, LBX stuff dot selected index is equal to int right counter. The semicolon here, and this is going to point to the next record in the list box. So while with this increment going on here, every right counter is always going to be pointing us toward our list box. So our list box, our index, we're going to say, okay, which index do you want to go through next? Well, initially 0, then 1, then 2, then 3. That's going to set the index that we're actually working with. That allows us to go down here then, in the next item, and say str list box record is equal to lbx stuff dot selected item. To string. That moves the record. Oh boy, moves the record to a string variable. So what we did is we actually took the item that's in the list box and moved to a string variable. Just like we did when we moved up to the text box, we're moving it to a variable that's going to hold it. Basically, a little box that's going to hold that counter. And that's why this thing is right here. It's going to be holding that thing. Then we're going to go ahead and write it. So we're going to say output file write line rstr list box record. And that writes the contents of the list box of that variable to the file. That's going to do it. So that's done. So this goes over and over and over again. When it's finally done and our right counter equals int record count, this thing ends and we bounce down here. So what do we do then? We close the file. Output file .close. Did I spell right? So let's take a look here. Oh, no, I didn't. Output file .close. There we go. Just like when we close a form. That's all we need to do. This closes the form. Closes the file, I should say. Okay, so that's it. We're going to do a file save. And I want to show you something before we get into this thing. I'm going to actually open up this folder. Let me find it for you real quickly. This is the folder that's actually holding that data. You've got the solution file here, and you've got the anything database folder right here. If I double click on this, you'll see all the stuff that Visual Studio produces. Inside here is a bin folder. If I click into that bin folder, it opens up the debug. And if I open up the debug folder, you'll see anything exe. This is the actual executable that runs your file. And we've got a configuration file and a PDB file too. Not sure what that means. And what's going to happen is our text file is going to go in here. So I'm going to move this off to the side. Actually, we can just kind of leave it over here. And I'm going to go ahead and run this thing. We're going to do a file save. And we're going to do a run. Our program's going to execute now. We're going to go ahead and put in those coffee beans. And we're going to put in that the bread and the milk. That's probably enough. And we're going to hit save. We have 3 records out there. We'll hit save, and that's going to go through and process everything. And it did it already. It's already done. So what I need to do now is go down to that folder and find it. I think it's this one right here. It's not. Must be this one. Yeah, there it is. Okay. There's my listboxfile.txt. If I double click on this thing, Notepad will open it. And it's opening up on a different screen, but I can bring it down to it so we can see it. And let's make it smaller so we can see it nicely. But there's our, in Notepad, there's our stuff. You can see coffee beans, bread, milk, and so on online are sitting right in here. And so that's there. So if I increase, and in fact, you can see the date and time that I actually put this thing in place. So that's being held for us. So that's all there is to it. That's what actually does this. Now we're going to go ahead and read this file later in order to do the load button. So we'll do that next. I'm going to bounce up. Actually, let's leave it open. We'll just leave it like this and let it sit there. I'm going to go ahead and close this program, and we'll look at the load button next. Okay, maybe a little complicated, but not so bad. You'll find that loading the data is quite similar. We'll do that next time. See you next time. Thanks for watching. And if you get a chance, please subscribe. I'd appreciate that. We'll see you in the next video. Take care.